The kettle whistled this morning before I was ready for it. That happens more often now. I stand by the stove with my hand on the counter, waiting for the water, and somewhere between turning the knob and hearing the sound, my mind walks off without telling me where it's going. This morning it went to Harold. It does that. 11 years and it still does that. I poured the water over the grounds the way he taught me, slow circles, never straight down the middle. He used to say coffee was the only thing in the house he was particular about. Everything else, he said, was my territory. And then he would fold his newspaper into thirds and read the back page first, the way no one else on earth read a newspaper. I sat at the same table this morning in the same chair, and for a moment I thought I heard the paper turning. I want to tell you something, and I do not have the patience anymore to dress it up nicely. My name is Evelyn Grace. I am 92 years old. I have lived in this house for 44 years, and I have outlived more people than I ever thought I would, including parts of myself I assumed would last. I am not here to be sweet. I am not here to be inspirational in the way those words have come to mean nothing. I am here because I know who is watching this, and I have been where you are sitting. You are probably tired, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The other kind, the kind where you have been doing what you were told and what you thought you were supposed to do, and somewhere along the way the bill came due, and you did not know it had been adding up. Maybe you are 40, maybe you are 60, maybe you are 28, and something inside you has already started whispering that this is not the life you meant to build. I know that whisper. I ignored it for a long time. There are 6 things I want you to stop doing. I am not going to dress them up as a list. Life never came to me as a list, and I am not going to insult you by pretending the truth fits inside one. But by the time we are done, you will know exactly what they are because you have been doing them. I did them too. Some of them I did until I was past 80. One of them I am still learning to stop. Let me start with the one that cost me the most. I waited. I waited for things. I waited for the right time, the right season, the right amount of money in the bank, the right age of the children, the right mood in the marriage, the right weather. Harold and I had a small green book where we wrote down places we wanted to go. Italy, the Pacific Northwest, a particular village in Scotland his mother had told him about as a boy. We had that book for 28 years before we opened it again with any seriousness. By then he had something growing in him that we did not know was there yet, and by the time we did know, the book belonged to a different version of us. We went to one of those places, just one. He sat on a bench by a fountain in a small town in Italy, and he closed his eyes and the sun was on his face, and he said very quietly, "We should have come sooner." That was all he said. We should have come sooner. I still have the book. I have not opened it in years. I am not sure I could. I do not tell you that to make you cry. I tell you that because I know you have a green book somewhere. Maybe it is not a book. Maybe it is a folder on your computer or a list on your phone or just a sentence you keep repeating in your head about what your life will look like once the children are older, once the promotion comes through, once your parents are taken care of, once you have a little more saved, once you feel a little more ready, once you lose the weight, once the weather changes. I am telling you from this side of the table that the once you are waiting for is a door that opens onto an empty room. You will get there, and the people you wanted to bring will already be somewhere else. Stop waiting. I do not mean be reckless. I do not mean throw away your responsibilities and run off into a sunset that does not exist. I mean stop treating your real life like a rehearsal for the one that is coming later. There is no later. There is this Tuesday. There is the trip you could take in October instead of next spring. There is the friend you could call this evening instead of next month. There is the apology you could deliver before dinner. The future is a story we tell ourselves to make the present bearable and the trade is too expensive. The future charges interest. By the time it arrives, you cannot afford it. I had a friend named Margaret. We were 30 when we met, 81 when she died. For 50 years, she told me about a house she wanted to buy on a particular lake she had loved as a girl. Every time we sat down for coffee, the lake came up. She had it all figured out: the kind of porch, the color of the kitchen, the path down to the water. When her husband died, she had the money. When her children were grown, she had the time. She still did not go. There was always a reason. The reasons were good reasons, the kind of reasons no one would argue with. She died in a hospital 2 hours from that lake, having never spent a single night in the house she had been designing in her head for half a century. I went to her funeral. I sat in the pew and I thought, Margaret, you spent your whole life decorating a room you never walked into. And I came home and I sat in this chair and I cried, not for her, but for everyone in that church who heard the story and went home and kept waiting. Now, the second thing. This one took me longer to see because it did not look like a problem. It looked like being a good woman. I apologized for myself. For decades, I apologized for taking up space, for having an opinion, for needing rest, for asking a second time, for not understanding something on the first try, for being in someone's way in a grocery store aisle when I had every right to be there. I apologized when men interrupted me. I apologized when I was the one who had been wronged. I apologized for my own body when it started doing what bodies do. I am 92 and I still catch myself doing it. The waitress brings the wrong order, and I am the one who says, sorry. I want to tell you something about that habit. It is not humility. It is not politeness. It is a slow erasure. Every unnecessary apology is a small piece of yourself you hand to someone who did not ask for it and does not know what to do with it. You do not get those pieces back. By the time I was 60, I had apologized so much that I no longer knew where the line was between courtesy and disappearance. Catherine, my oldest, has called more often lately. She is 68, which still feels impossible to me. When I look at her, I see the 4-year-old who used to put her hand on my cheek when I was tired. But these calls are not the calls of a daughter to a mother. They are something else. She is checking. She is measuring. She is gathering evidence for a conversation she is preparing to have with her brother and sister. I know this because I would have done the same thing in her place. I know this because I see her loving me through the lens of her own fear, and I have learned not to take it personally, but also not to bend to it. She came over last month and she opened the cabinet under the sink, just to see, she said, just to make sure I had what I needed. And I felt that old urge rising in me, that urge to say, I am sorry the cabinet is a mess. I am sorry I have not gotten to it. I am sorry I am not the woman who has everything in order anymore. And instead I sat down at the table and I said nothing for a long minute. And then I told her the cabinet was exactly the way I wanted it. She looked at me like I had grown a second head, but she closed the door. I think about that moment more than I should. Such a small thing. A woman of 92 declining to apologize for the inside of her own cabinet. And yet it took me 60 years to be able to do it. 60 years to look at someone who loves me and say, this is mine and it is fine, and I do not owe you a small piece of myself just because you opened the door. Stop apologizing for existing. Stop apologizing for being tired, for being human, for being in your own life. Save your sorry for when you have actually hurt someone. The rest of the time, let the silence do the work. The silence is not rude. The silence is honest. You will be surprised how much room opens up in a conversation when you stop filling it with apologies that were never owed. The third thing. This one I learned from Harold, and I only learned it after he was gone, which is a particular kind of cruelty I think the universe enjoys. Stop keeping score. I kept score for most of my marriage, quietly, the way wives of my generation were taught to, I knew which dinners I had cooked when I was sick. I knew which Christmases his family had ruined. I knew which apologies he owed me and had never delivered. I kept a ledger in my chest, and I told myself I was not keeping it, and meanwhile every entry was being filed in perfect order. When we fought, the ledger came out, not the whole thing, just the page that mattered for that argument. The night before he went into the hospital for the last time, we sat on the back porch. It was September. There was that particular smell that September has here, the one that means the leaves are about to start turning. He was tired in the way you get tired when you know. He took my hand and he said, "You know, Ev, I do not remember any of it. The fights, the cold weeks. I know they happened, but I cannot find them." And I started to cry because I could find them. I could find every single one. I had kept them all like a woman saving receipts for a return that was never going to happen. That night, I started letting them go. Slowly, one by one. Some of them I still find now, all these years later, tucked in the back of a drawer of my mind, and I sit with them, and I think, what was this for? What did I think I was going to do with it? Who did I think I was punishing? The ledger is not for you. It feels like protection. It feels like fairness. It is neither. It is a weight you carry until the person you are weighing against is gone, and then you carry it alone, and it is heavier than anything you have ever picked up. Drop it. I am telling you, drop it. Forgive the things you swore you would never forgive, not for them, for the woman or the man you want to be in the room when the conversation about the back porch arrives, and it will arrive. I am not telling you to forget. There is a difference between forgetting and forgiving. Forgetting is for the lucky. Forgiving is a choice. Forgetting happens to you. Forgiving you do on purpose, sometimes again and again, sometimes in pieces, sometimes for things the other person does not even know they did. And it is not for them. Listen to me. It is not for them. It is for the chest that has to carry the ledger. It is for the heart that does not have room for both the love and the list. There is a fourth thing, and this one I will admit I am still working on. At 92. So if you are 45 and beating yourself up about it, take some comfort. Stop saying yes when you mean no. I said yes for most of my life. Yes to dinners I did not want to attend. Yes to favors that became obligations. Yes to roles in the family that no one else wanted and that I never agreed to in writing, but somehow inherited anyway. The peacemaker, the rememberer of birthdays, the one who hosted, the one who smoothed it over. I said yes because no felt like a small violence, and I had been taught that women were not supposed to do small violences. But here is what I learned. Every yes that should have been a no is a quiet betrayal of yourself, and those betrayals stack. They stack into resentment, and resentment looks for somewhere to land, and it usually lands on the people you love most, in small ways they do not deserve and cannot understand. Diana, my youngest, calls almost every day. She is 61. She worries the way some people breathe, constantly, without thinking about it. She has been asking me to come stay with her for a while. Not move in, just stay. A few weeks, then a few months probably. I know how those things go. And I love her. I love her in a way I cannot put into language. But the answer is no, not because I do not want to see her, because I know myself. I know that if I leave this house for a few months, I will not come back the same. The light on the floor will look different to me when I return. The chair Harold used to sit in will feel further away. The geography of this kitchen is one of the last things I have. And Diana does not understand that yet, because she is still in the middle of her own life, and from there it is impossible to see why an old woman would choose loneliness over company. I told her no last week. It was hard. She cried a little, I cried a little after we hung up, and then I sat in this chair, and I felt something I had not felt in a long time. I felt like I had told the truth, and the truth had not killed anyone. Diana will be all right. She will call again tomorrow. The no did not end us. The no made the love between us more honest. If you cannot say no, you cannot really say yes. Everything you agree to under pressure is counterfeit. The people in your life deserve your real yes, and they deserve a no that means no, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. I want you to try something. The next time someone asks you for something, anything, do not answer right away. Just say, "Let me think about it, and I will get back to you." Watch what happens. Watch how uncomfortable that small pause makes you. Watch how badly you want to fill it with a yes you have not examined. That discomfort is the price of a real life. Sit with it. Let it teach you. By the time you are my age, you will have given yourself back so many hours, so many evenings, so much energy, that you will not recognize the woman or the man you used to be, the one who said yes to everything and meant it about none of it. Now we come to the fifth thing, and I want you to listen to this one carefully, because it is the one I see young people getting wrong with the most confidence. Stop neglecting the body you live in. I do not mean diet. I do not mean some plan you saw on the internet. I mean the simple, almost embarrassing fact that you have one body, and it is the only one you will ever have, and it has been speaking to you, and you have been ignoring it. You ignore the back pain. You ignore the sleep you are not getting. You ignore the way your shoulders sit up by your ears. You ignore the way you have not taken a real walk, alone, with no purpose, in months or maybe years. You feed it whatever is easiest. You move it as little as possible. You give it caffeine when it asks for rest, and sugar when it asks for food, and a screen when it asks for sky. And then you are surprised when it starts to send you bills you cannot pay. I was lucky. I came from a generation that walked everywhere. I gardened. I cooked from scratch because there was no other way. My body has lasted this long not because I worked at it, but because the world I grew up in made me move without asking. Your world is different. Your world will let you sit still for 30 years and then hand you the consequences in your 50s like a surprise. It is not a surprise. The body has been telling you the whole time. Robert, my middle one, is 65. He lives in another state. He calls me on Sundays sometimes, and he always sounds like a man who is solving a problem. That is how he loves. He sends me articles about handrails and medical alert necklaces and a kind of stove that turns itself off. He means well. I know he means well. But he has been sitting at a desk since he was 22, and his back is starting to do things. And last time I saw him, he winced when he stood up from my couch, and he changed the subject quickly because he did not want me to see. I saw. I see everything. I have nothing else to do but see. I wanted to say to him, Robert, the handrails are not the problem. The problem is that you have spent 40 years pretending you do not have a body. The problem is that you treat yours like a vehicle that carries your brain to meetings. The vehicle has been complaining for 20 years, and you have been turning up the radio. I did not say it. He was not ready. Maybe he will be ready when he watches this. I do not know. I will tell you what I have learned about this body. It is a kinder thing than we deserve. It forgives us for years before it starts to give us bills. It heals from things we did not have the sense to avoid. It carries us through grief and childbirth and surgery and the slow wait of 100 bad nights of sleep, and it does it without complaint until the complaint becomes the only language it has left. When the body finally starts shouting, it is because it has been whispering for 2 decades, and we did not listen. Move, sleep, eat food that came from the ground instead of from a box. Drink water. Sit outside for 10 minutes a day with nothing in your hands. I am not telling you anything you do not know. I am telling you that the knowing is not the problem. The doing is the problem. And the doing gets harder, not easier, the longer you wait. Start now. Start small. Start before the body sends a bill you cannot return. And while I am at it, let me say one more thing about this. Stop apologizing for the body, too. Stop apologizing for it being older than it was. Stop apologizing for the lines on your face, the softness around your middle, the gray in your hair. Those are not failures. Those are receipts. You earned them. They are proof that you have been here, that you have lived, that you have laughed and worried and stayed up too late and gotten up too early for the people you loved. Wear them. The world will tell you to hide them. The world is wrong. The world has been wrong about this for a very long time. And at 92, I do not have the energy to be polite about it anymore. Which brings me to the last one, the sixth thing. And this one is the hardest. And I have saved it for the end, because I want you to be ready. Stop putting off the conversation you keep meaning to have. You know the one. You know exactly the one. Maybe it is with your mother, and there is something between you that has been sitting in the room every time you visit, and you both step around it, and you have been stepping around it for so long that the dance is more familiar than the floor. Maybe it is with a sibling you stopped speaking to over something that, if you are honest, you cannot fully remember anymore. Maybe it is with a friend you let drift and you keep meaning to call, and the longer you wait, the harder it gets until calling feels almost impossible because what would you even say? Maybe it is with a child and you owe them an apology that has been 20 years in the coming. Maybe it is with your own spouse and you have not really told them what you feel, what you fear, what you need in so long that you are not sure you remember how. Have it. Have the conversation. I am begging you. I am begging you with the authority of a woman who has lost the chance to have several of them and who carries those silences around like stones in her pockets. The night Harold died, I sat by his bed. He was not really there anymore. The morphine had taken him to whatever place the dying go before the body catches up. And I held his hand and I told him things I had not told him in years. I told him I was sorry for a fight we had in 1987 that I had never properly apologized for. I told him I loved the way he hummed in the shower. I told him I had been afraid my whole life that I was not enough for him, and I had spent decades pretending I was not afraid, and I should have just said it, and he should have had the chance to tell me I was wrong. I said all of it to a man who could not hear me. Or maybe he could. I will never know. Do not do that. Do not save the truth for the deathbed. The deathbed is not a place for first conversations. It is a place for last ones, and the last ones only work if the first ones have already happened. Call the person. Get in the car. Write the letter if you cannot get the words out loud. But do not let another year pass with the conversation still sitting in the room. My granddaughter Rose is 8. She came over a few weeks ago with her mother, and her mother was on the phone in the other room dealing with something, and Rose sat down at this table across from me, and she looked at me with those serious eyes she has, and she said, "Grandma, are you going to die soon?" Just like that. The way only an 8-year-old can ask. I did not lie to her. I told her I was old, and that old people die, and that I did not know when, but that it probably would not be next week. She thought about that. Then she said, "Okay, can I have one of the cookies?" And she had her cookie, and we sat there, and I thought, my God, this is how it should be done. The truth and the cookie. The truth, and then the rest of the afternoon. No one in this family has talked to me about death the way Rose just did. Everyone steps around it. Catherine cannot say the word. Diana cries if I try. Robert sends me articles about handrails, Rose asked. Rose listened. Rose had a cookie, 8 years old. I think she taught me something that afternoon. I think she taught me that the conversations we are most afraid of are usually the simplest when we finally have them. We build them up in our heads for years. We rehearse them. We avoid them. We imagine how badly they will go. And then we have them, and they take 15 minutes, and we walk away wondering what we were so afraid of. Not all of them. Some of them are hard. Some of them are the hardest thing you will ever do. But even those are not as hard as the years of not having them. I'm going to tell you something now, and I want you to sit with it for a moment before you let your mind move on to whatever you are doing next. The hardest part of getting old is not the body. It is not the loneliness, although the loneliness is real. It is not even the losing of people, although that never stops being terrible. The hardest part is realizing that almost all of your regrets are about the same thing. They are all about the moments where you knew what you should do and you did the other thing because the other thing was easier or quieter or more polite. You knew you should go on the trip. You knew you should leave the job. You knew you should call your father. You knew you should tell her the truth. You knew, and you did not. That is the only regret in the end, the knowing without the doing. Everything else is just life, and life is supposed to have rough edges. But the knowing without the doing, that is the one that follows you to the porch in September. So, 6 things. Stop waiting for a later that will not come on the terms you imagine. Stop apologizing for the room you take up in your own life. Stop keeping a ledger of who owes you what. Stop saying yes when your whole body is saying no. Stop pretending you do not have a body, or that the one you have will forgive infinite neglect. And stop, for the love of everything, putting off the conversation that is sitting in the room every time you walk into it. I will not tell you it is easy. I have been working on these for 70 years, and I am still not finished with some of them. I will tell you that the work is the only work that matters in the end. Everything else is decoration. My grandson James is 23. He came by last summer. He sat where you would be sitting if you were here. He did not look at his phone the entire time, which I noticed, and which I have not forgotten. He asked me what I would do differently, not in a polite way. He really wanted to know, so I told him most of what I have just told you, in a shorter version, because the kettle had started to whistle, and the cookies were in the oven, and life kept moving the way it does. And at the end he said, "Grandma, that is a lot." And I said, "James, you have time. That is the only thing you have more of than I do. Use it. I am going to tell you the same thing. You have time. You probably do not feel like you do. You feel like you are behind, like you are running late, like everyone else figured it out and you missed the meeting. None of that is true. The people who look like they have it figured out are not telling you the truth about their nights. Everyone is making it up. Everyone is afraid. The only difference between the people who get to the end with peace and the people who get to the end with regret is what they did when they noticed the fear. The ones with peace did the thing anyway. My oldest granddaughter, Sophie, is 25. She is the one who calls and actually asks me how I am, and then waits for the answer, the real answer, not the polite one. She came over a few months ago, and we sat on the porch, and she told me she was thinking about leaving a job that was paying her well, but making her feel like she was disappearing. She wanted to know what I thought. I told her the only thing I knew to tell her. I told her that no amount of money is worth the slow disappearance of yourself, and that the years you spend in the wrong room are years you cannot get back, and that I had watched her grandfather come home from a job he tolerated for 35 years, and that he was a good man and a happy man in spite of it, but I always wondered what kind of man he might have been if he had let himself want more. She was quiet for a long time. Then she left. 2 weeks later, she gave her notice. I do not know if it was because of what I said. I do not need to know. She did the thing. That is what matters. I want to tell you where I am now, so you know who has been talking to you. I am in my kitchen. The light comes in through the window over the sink at this hour and lands on the floor in a particular shape I have known for 44 years. There is a chair Harold used to sit in. I still do not move it. There is a photograph on the refrigerator of Rose holding a frog she found in the yard last summer, and the frog looks resigned and Rose looks triumphant, and I look at that picture every morning while the coffee is brewing. I am not afraid. I want you to know that. I was for a long time. I was afraid of being old, and then I became old, and the fear did not match the reality. The reality is quieter than the fear told me it would be. There are hard days. There are days when my hands do not work the way they used to, and days when I miss Harold so much I have to sit down in the middle of doing something ordinary. There are days when Catherine calls and I can hear her counting how many times I have repeated myself in a single conversation, and I want to tell her she repeats herself too, but I do not, because I love her, and because some battles are not worth winning, but mostly there is this: the light on the floor, the coffee, the picture of Rose with the frog, the phone that rings, the garden that still needs tending even though I have given up most of it, the body that still walks me from one room to another, even slowly, the mind that still finds words, mostly when it needs them, the fact that I am still here telling you this and that you are still there, listening. I have one more thing to say. I almost did not, but I think I should. When I started recording things like this, my children thought I had lost my mind. Catherine in particular. She thought I was wasting energy I did not have on strangers I would never meet. She did not understand why I would talk to a camera when I had 3 children and 7 grandchildren and a life full of people who loved me. I will tell you why. Because the people who love me did not need to hear what I just said. They have their own lives and their own grandmothers and their own version of these lessons coming down the pipe at them whether they listen or not. But you I do not know. You came here for some reason. Maybe the title caught your eye. Maybe an algorithm decided I should appear in your day. Maybe you are alone tonight. Maybe you are not, but you feel alone, which is sometimes worse. I wanted you to have something, a voice, an old woman at a kitchen table who told you the truth and did not soften it. Whatever else this video is, it is a hand reaching across whatever distance is between us, and it is real, and I mean it. Stop waiting. Stop apologizing. Stop keeping score. Stop saying yes when you mean no. Stop neglecting your body. Stop putting off the conversation. You will not do all of them. I did not either. But you might do one, and one is enough to start. The kettle has gone cold. I'm going to put it back on. Outside, the light has moved across the floor and is starting to climb the wall, the way it does every afternoon at this hour. I have a phone call to make. There is someone I have been meaning to call for a long time, and I think today is the day. I learn too. I am still learning. 92 and still learning. Thank you for sitting with me. I mean that. It has been a long time since anyone really sat across from me without checking the time. Whatever comes next for you, I hope you remember what I said. And I hope, more than anything, that you do not wait. Take care of yourself. And then, while you still can, take care of the people who are waiting for you to say what they have been waiting to hear. That is all. That is everything I have.